RU58841 gene within the dermal papilla, preventing the hair follicle cells from activating the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. What is up guys, and welcome back to Alphamode. And in this video I want to cover a bit of all this, well, I'm gonna call it crazy CRISPR talk that there's been roaming around on the internet regarding CRISPR being able to more or less stop hair loss, and will CRISPR be the end of all hair loss, and so on and so on. So as you probably already know, a ton of YouTubers have already covered this subject on every angle more or less. But I really couldn't stop wondering what they thought was going to happen in the near future. So I did watch a few videos on the subject, or mostly honestly had to endure some of them, since well, it was some of the biggest nonsense I've heard since people came up with these laser hats for hair loss that some of them were using. First off, let's start with some of the basics of CRISPR/Cas9. So it is currently the simplest, most versatile and precise method for when you want to manipulate some genes in, well, animals and people. And therefore it is causing a buzz in the science world. So CRISPR is a unique technology that enables us and medical researchers to edit parts of the genome by removing, adding, or just altering some sections of the DNA sequence. So basically how this works is that the CRISPR/Cas9 system consists of two molecules. That is the key of the whole thing. They introduce a change into the DNA, or more or less a mutation is also possible. So the first one is an enzyme called Cas9, and this enzyme works as a molecular scissor more or less. It can cut these two strands of DNA at specific location in the genome, so that bits of the DNA can be added, removed, or altered, or whatever you want to. The next one is called the RNA, or guide RNA, or actually the gRNA to be precise. And this consists of small pieces of pre-designed RNA sequences. Can be about 20 bases long, more or less, give or take. This RNA sequence is of course located in the RNA scaffold. The scaffold binds the RNA, and the pre-designed sequence guides the Cas9 to the right part of the genome, and this makes sure, in theory, that the Cas9 enzyme cuts at the right point in the genome. So the guide RNA, or gRNA, is designed to find a specific sequence in your DNA. The guide RNA has the RNA bases that, well, works with those targeted DNA sequence in the genome. That means that, at least in theory, the guide RNA will only bind to the targeted sequence and no other regions in the genome. So the Cas9 enzyme follows the RNA to the same location in the DNA sequence and makes a cut across both strands of the DNA. So at this stage the cell recognizes that the DNA is damaged and will try and repair it. From here on, the scientists can use the DNA repair machinery to induce changes to one or more genes in the genome of a cell of interest, or whatever, let's say human for that sake. So that is the basics, and now that we have the basics down, let's hear some of the, well, bigger hair loss channels on what they have to say about the CRISPR/Cas9 technology. The guy at, I think it's called Hairliciously, I don't really remember his name, but no offense, and I wanted to make this very clear. I'm not trying to bash someone else's channel, but I am going to paraphrase someone. And this guy, he said the following: the SRD5A2 gene, which is responsible for creating the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which we know are going to play a pivotal role in the conversion of testosterone into DHT. The combination of Cas9 and guide RNA, which is specifically designed to suppress SRD5A2 gene, which is encapsulated into nanoliposomes, which are attached to microbubbles, which then is applied to the scalp, and then an ultrasound is applied to the skin, which bursts the microbubbles and creates momentary cavities in the surface of the skin to transport these nanoliposomes through the epidermis and then eventually to the terminal papilla cells. Cas9 is then going to cut into the target RNA and allows the crafted guide RNA sequence to suppress the 5AR gene within the dermal papilla, preventing the hair follicle cells from activating the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. And this sounds really nice and fancy and everything, especially since most guys have a tendency to connect 5-alpha reductase and DHT to hair loss. And of course there is a good cause for this and much case evidence for connecting these two. Just try to think about this for a second though. 1. DHT causes hair loss and is converted from testosterone. Yes, that is true. 2. Some guys just don't lose hair from DHT or any other androgen steroids. Just look at, well, Mr. Natty O'Haran. So yeah, some guys it doesn't matter, and those guys usually are the guys with hair, and it doesn't matter if they have more DHT, they still don't lose hair. Even if they take steroids, some of them will just keep their hair indefinitely. And 3. Guys who already lose hair usually still loses hair even with over 90% of all DHT removed. So we already know that hair loss for most of us doesn't only get triggered by DHT. And even if we either decrease the DHT or remove it completely, some of them will still lose hair. And the people who can stop or reverse the hair loss with finasteride or RU58841, don't you think they're gonna stick with what works for them instead of trying some new crazy treatment? So we know that this new and fancy hair treatment is meant for those who still struggle with hair loss because, well, if finasteride or RU58841 worked, you're not looking into anything else. But we also could more or less figure out that these men who still lose hair, even when DHT is removed, they probably, most cases, still lose hair. The treatment he is talking about doesn't even fix the gene that makes us lose hair, since we don't really know what kind of gene this is. I have a link down below for a study with over 1,000 men included, where they actually tried to close in on where this gene is located. And guess what? They didn't find it. They found some other stuff, but nothing that says it's at least just one gene or anything. So they didn't find a lot there, so we don't know which gene it is. Besides that, let's look at another part of the project. So CRISPR safety profile, and this is from the UCLA Research Safety and Animal Welfare. Basically saying that CRISPR is already known to have this problem that it doesn't only target the guide RNA, but sometimes it goes rogue around the body and just cuts everything else that it's not supposed to cut. The next thing is they actually also say that basically they can't stop a rogue CRISPR from just cutting you up completely on the inside. So CRISPR definitely isn't just something to mess around with. Not only that, I know, and this is just me trying to remember, but I think they associated 3 or 4% of all CRISPR cases to begin cell mutations, which means basically cancer is gonna come at some point. 3 to 5% I think it was, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was around 3 to 5% of all the tests they made induced some kind of cancer. So we're looking at cancer and we're looking at something just messing your DNA permanently. So let's just say that you get the treatment and it works for your hair. Would you really risk a rogue CRISPR in your body for that? Let's say it shuts down your DHT in your whole body. It just messes all your SRD5A2. And I just want to add, I'm fairly skeptical about this local effect of the gene editing, but I'll play along for now. Let's just say it shuts down all your genes with the SRD5A2. Guess what you might pass down to your children if you hit the jackpot. And here's the thing, you don't need DHT when you're past, I'll take a guess now, I'm guessing, around 25. After 25, DHT isn't really important for your body anymore. So you won't notice if CRISPR shuts down your whole gene. The only thing you're gonna notice is that if you pass that gene on to, let's say, a boy, he is going to be more or less a boy who looks like a girl until you finally maybe do some blood samples on him and find out that it's a boy with no testosterone. You can actually ruin your children's health by fucking with this gene. So I wouldn't do it, but fair enough. I'm just saying CRISPR technology is not going to end hair loss. It is not going to reduce hair loss, and it probably won't be usable for another 50 years at least. And when it does, it won't be for hair loss. Just try and think about this. So we already know that CRISPR really carries a major risk already. Usually, well, it might work. Let's just say it is going to work at some point. If they don't fix the other problems, CRISPR is going to be like cancer medicine. Very effective, but also with a bunch of side effects. And you only use this kind of medicine or treatment when we are talking life and death. You don't use cancer treatment for cosmetically procedures, and you don't use cancer treatment just for looks or anything. So I don't think that this is ever going to happen. And I know most of these guys probably mean it well when they make a video about this subject. And I assume that it probably started somewhere else and got copied and copied. You know, just as when you do this exercise where you line a bunch of people up in a chain and you tell the first man some sentence or something weird that he is going to pass on by whispering to the next and the next and the next. And finally, when it gets to the end, the last person is going to yell the sentence. And usually people get a good laugh because it shows if you keep relaying something, the message is going to get skewed. And I believe it's the same thing here. Since alone the sentence Cas9 is going to cut into the RNA and allow the crafted guide RNA sequence to suppress the 5AR gene within the dermal papilla, preventing the hair follicle cells from activating the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. Hair follicle cells don't activate 5AR enzymes. Enzymes just, they float. They don't always do, but let's just say they float and combine with stuff they need to combine with. They don't need activation. So I have a feeling that this guy don't really know what he is talking about, and he is just copying and relaying another YouTube who copied from somebody else who probably actually said something that was pretty consistent and reliable in the beginning about CRISPR, and now I just got skewed over the way up to this channel. So guys, honestly, stop watching all these CRISPR videos about they're going to end hair loss, because I believe that most of them are completely nonsense. And even if it works, it is still the same as doing testosterone. It won't change a thing. Even if it works, there are backdoors, activation and other things that still works. Just look at this study on people with the SRD5A2 mutation. They still produce DHT. So guys, there you have it. CRISPR my ass, and I'll see you in the next video.